What evil prank have you pulled off? Mom can't tolerate sweet things. Since she can remember, she never ate sweets. When I was 6 or so, during breakfast, Mom left her newly brewed coffee on the table. My older brother encouraged me to put more sugar as a prank. So I did. Mom came back, stirred and drank and spit out a rocket. We started laughing, saying it was a prank, explaining that we put extra sugar in it. She looked at us as if we were stupid. Apparently I put salt instead. Her coffee was at sea salt level. Edit. Welp. Got my very first silver and a second silver. Thank you kindly, strangers. My co-workers in the Chicago office asked me to bring back a phone book and the hotel stationery from my business trip to Kansas City. They were preparing for another co-worker's bachelor party for the night before the wedding. The groom was known for drinking to an extent that was considered legendary. After a night of drinking, he woke up on the morning of his wedding in a hotel room. He checked the nightstand and found the Kansas City phone book. The desk was stocked with KC stationery. His friends had clued the front desk staff in on what was happening and convinced them to answer his room phone "Good morning and welcome to the Kansas City Holiday Inn." It was 5 hours till the wedding, and he was actually only a couple miles from the venue. But the freakout was epic. I have an extra mouse in my desk drawer at work. I have the USB plugged into the docking station of the obnoxious guy a couple cubes away. On days he is particularly obnoxious, I will take out the extra mouse and move it around every few minutes. He has never realized because it's plugged into the docking station and not his laptop. He has even had the laptop replaced. Never noticed. It brings me to tears, silently laughing sometimes. I have to be careful not to overdo it. I've posted this before, but I made a friend believe she was being followed by a guard gnome for years. Many of her friends are involved plus other helpers. She shows up at a B&B in Scotland that we'd recommended, and there was a gnome in the garden. And it looked exactly like the gnome that had briefly turned up in her yard. Then she saw it on her way to work. Then in Provence and Germany. It really did look like the same gnome. It was. Gradually over the course of 2 weeks moved my co-worker's monitors closer to the front edge of the desk. Like 1/4 per move. Until they were so close the keyboard barely fit. Stupid small desk, she grumbled. Near the end, I then moved them back. Just as slowly. Over a few weeks. She never caught on. I used to work for a cruise line. A passenger asked if the crew lives on the ship full time. I and my co-worker explained that no. The crew leaves every night to fly back to Miami and then returns each morning. She walked away satisfied. After that cruise was over, our manager was sharing the passenger evaluations with us and was confused about one in particular. It was a woman who had stayed on deck 14 and had complained that she couldn't sleep at night because of the noise of the crew helicopter. Fact 1. 200 crew do not leave every night but do live on the ship. Fact 2. That ship didn't even have a helipad. Question. People in school used to always take my Gatorade. So I took an empty bottle, filled it with dyed salt water, and let them take my drink. Not gonna lie. It was hilarious watching one person to spit salt water in the middle of class only for their unbelieving friend to do the same. Picked out every last marshmallow from my sister's box of Lucky Charms. Then took a photo of me eating a bowl of Just Charms. Printed it. And put in the bottom of the bag. I then sealed the bag back up. Hot glued the box and back in the pantry it went. I lived in Korea for a bit. When my mom came to visit I told my Korean girlfriend it was an American custom to greet older women by touching elbows. I told my mom the same story about Korean customs. It was a thing of beauty. They were not pleased. Over a decade ago I worked in the warehouse of a Guitar Center. We dealt with inventory, shipping and receiving. We had a dumpster behind the store in a shared parking lot that people would leave random things in even though it was not a public dumpster. One day we found a broken beach chair in an open cardboard box. The box had a shipping label on it. It was left in such a way that it was easy to assume that the chair box combo was left by the same person. We packed the beach chair in another box and shipped it back to the customer. I wish I was there to see the person's face when they received their trash back via UPS. I worked at a fast food where the boss was too cheap to get AC installed. In the super hot summer days we would all sweat so much that we could wring sweat out of our uniforms. There was this boy who I had a love-hate relationship with. We would always prank each other, but mine were always tame. Until one day, he left his drink in the back while he was flipping burgers. I grabbed a vinegar packet, cut open a corner and put a straw directly into it and exchanged it with the straw from his drink. Moments later, I was in the front of the store and I heard him spit and scream my name while calling me a bitch. One night I replaced every framed object in my boss's office with a picture of me making a stern face. Posters, certificates, photos, etc. Took like 3 hours because he had like 30 framed things in his office. The next day I made sure I was out doing field work to make him sit with it most of the day. He had a lot of foot traffic to look at his office that day. My mum's laptop wallpaper was a picture of her granddaughter. I copied the picture 100 times and made her wallpaper a slideshow of the same picture over and over again. So the file would change but nothing would change visibly on the monitor. The pictures would change every 10 seconds. On one of the images I painted a tiny little curly mustache on her. So randomly for 10 seconds my niece would have a mustache. My mum thought she was either losing her mind or had a computer virus, and every time the mustache popped up, it was gone by the time she tried to show anyone. I remember it like it was yesterday. At summer camp my cabin's leaders found a little snake that wasn't doing so well, so they decided to put it in an old terrarium in our cabin. A few of the guys were nervous about it. So the next day when the leaders decided the snake was well enough to release, I asked that they keep quiet about releasing it. When the other guys got back to the cabin and found no snake in the terrarium, chaos ensued. Not a prank I pulled off, but one I was victim to. My manager had left me in charge of the store when I was 16. Not legal, but that's a whole other mess, for a whole weekend. Saturday went well and I was happy with how I went. Although my paranoid brain is always concerned about whether or not doors are actually locked. I'm the same with my house. But the store was worse. So I make my dad drive down to the store to double check that everything is okay. 15 minutes later I get a phone call from him saying, "Manager, and the police are here because the door was unlocked and people were inside." Cue to me on the floor in tears hyperventilating, while my dad is telling my mum, who had since picked up the phone, that he was only kidding and that everything was fine. 1 year. My sister had to move back into my parents' house. I was like 15. She was a little older. Mid-20s. April Fool's comes. And I know my sister woke up at like 6 AM. So I took out the light in the kitchen, put Vaseline all on the refrigerator handle, and put a rubber band around the water gun on the sink. I waited for her to go in the kitchen. I was in my room pretending to be asleep. And all I heard was "shti," followed by a "shti," followed by her screaming my name and waking up my parents. My parents were not happy. Floor was soaked with water, and it woke both of them up. Do it again though. Edit. Water gun thing. There is a small little black sprayer to the right of the sink. You pull it out. It has a hose connected to it, and you can spray down dishes and such. I was 9. My dad just had hernia surgery the day prior and was recuperating on the couch before I left for school. I put the Martha Stewart channel on and left the remote just beyond his reach. He spent 8 hours learning how to arrange pillows on a bed. He exacted his revenge 15 years later. I just had my emergency C-section and he put Frozen on and left it on a loop while the entire family left for the mall and left the remote just out of my reach. Revenge is indeed a dish best served cold. Welded a co-worker's boot to the floor. He had worn out the toe caps on his steel-toed boots while he was making a weld kneeling inside a large piece of equipment on steel. I put a small tack weld on his boot so he had trouble breaking it loose and getting up. One that was played on me. I took my SATs, college entrance exams, for those outside the US, on the 1st of April. Should have known, right? But apparently, I'm not that smart. That night I went out with a group of friends. And when I got home my mom met me with a serious look on her face. She told me that the testing committee had called. That there had been an error and all test papers from that day were lost. Everyone was being contacted to schedule a date to retake the exam. She totally sold it. Face. Reactions. Everything. I bought it hook, line, and sinker. And she let me believe it until lunchtime the next day. My mom is a diabolical person. I put hot sauce on my little brother's toothpaste one morning when we were kids. My friend was the kind of dude who when he got a few beers in him would go into 30-minute monologues about how bad the prequel trilogies were. He had 3 impressionable young sons. I bought them all of the Gungan Star Wars action figures. They became their favorite toys to play with. I got pranked. Does that count? Was at a house party at my then girlfriend's place. She knew me really well and knew that I've got a fairly competitive spirit. The place is really dark. She turns to me in the dim light and says, "My name. I bet you can't fit an orange in your mouth and eat it all in one bite." Wasn't about to say no to a challenge, so I took her up on it. Dude was harassing my ex because he used to have her cell phone number. Was being a real f-king creep. Anyways, I created an email address, signed up to Kijiji and placed an ad offering an 83D TV for free with some excuse about a bad breakup and not wanting her to get it. I asked people to only text or call. I then went to bed and forgot all about it until the next day at work I get a text from my ex asking if I had done something on Kijiji. The dude was begging her to take the ad down and apologizing. I checked the email and there were 5 pages of responses even though I had told them not to email but to call or text. Dude's phone must have been ringing constantly. I took the ad down and she never heard from him again. Working in a hot factory. Supervisor and job planner in this enclosed cubicle with a window AC unit in the middle of the shop, aka nice 68 and there while we sweat our ass off in 95-110 F heat. Kinda hot and pissy and always flies around. I kept grabbing the flies alive. Walking into the cubicle to ask a usually legit question or say I'm just cooling off and opening my hand behind my back. I put 14 of those FKs in there in one shift. He never did catch on I was doing it and the planner was pissed swatting around. There were so many flies in there. Supervisor was cleaning out every crevice thinking some food is supporting life now somewhere. You were planting bugs in their office. Bought a new TV after saving up for a couple months. Next day I played a video on the TV to make it look like it fell and was broken cracked. I was in Kuwait on the way to Iraq when our bird got delayed for 3 weeks. Well, Kuwait has these things called dub-dubs. A dub-dub is a lizard about the size of a small cat. They're utterly harmless but when they get pissed off they hiss loud as hell and do this whole threat display thing. Looks scary-ish t. Well, being the enterprising marine that I was, I quickly set about catching them and placing them in any of the Air Force guys' stuff I could find unattended. Backpacks, lockers, desks, toolboxes, glove compartments, sleeping bags, you name it. I must have planted at least 3 or 4 dozen dub-dubs in my boredom. Some guy would go into his office. You'd hear a drawer open, so god FCK and damn it I hate these mother FCKers so goddamned much. I was suspected as the dub-dub terrorist. But it was immediately dismissed by the Air Force guys cause he's a marine. He's too stupid. Yes. Yes I am. Suspect nothing and enjoy the new pet I left waiting for you in your pillowcase. One summer in college. I worked in the registrar's office, registering all the incoming freshmen. A prof who was a mentor to me was teaching freshman seminar and asked me to handpick a class for her. Straight A students. High SATs. Whatever. So I did. 15 students. All named Sarah. kept both regular and Honey Nut Cheerios at the house because my mom and my dad each ate one type and hated the other. Unless you look close, they appear the same, so one day I switched the boxes. The looks were priceless. Once I asked a friend for another friend's phone number. He gave me a teacher's number. I then went on to send multiple messages in a fake angry tone to my unsuspecting teacher. FCK that diabolical genius of a friend. Not me. But a coworker collected a week's worth of hole punches, the little white circles that get punched out. Then he got our boss car keys and carefully stacked them on the edges of the vents in her car. Set the AC dials to max and left them. Out with my flatmates at the pub. One had brought a bunch of mates with him and they were being quite loud, whereas I prefer a quieter meeting. Still, I was a bit tipsy too. So, I filled one of the spare shot glasses on the table with vinegar. I assumed when I passed it to him he'd smell it and realize. Nope. He downed that tea. Then coughed and spat it back into the glass. I created a fake uniform policy poster for my high school. It wasn't perfect, but people were idiots so they fell for it. It took everyone about a week to actually read the poster and see that it was obviously fake. Some people still showed up on the first day wearing the uniform that I designed. Edit. The uniform wasn't anything idiotic looking. Just khaki pants, white button shirt, church shoes, and black socks. Two of my friends have never met each other. Before they spoke I told both of them that the other is a bit deaf. They shouted at each other for a few minutes before they realized that I'm an asshole. I made fake versions of Internet Explorer that turn your PC off when started in the ICT class at school. Edit. Whoa. Flip the lights on and off while my sister and friends played with a Ouija board. Hasn't quite been the same since. Are you alive or dead? At my high school senior class picnic way back in the late 80s. I spread a rumor that the brownies I brought were pot brownies. Half a dozen kids went to the nurse because they were so stoned. A friend kept trying to steal my sushi off my plate at a sushi restaurant. So while she wasn't looking I stuffed it full of wasabi. Put a bit of fish back on top to cover my tracks. And pretended to not be looking when she started reaching towards it. She tossed it into her mouth. Started chewing down. And I just swung my head towards her to say you f***ed up. 5 minutes of coughing. Muffled screaming. And copious amounts of water later. She had learned her lesson. In high school I went into the boys' bathroom and replaced all the soap in the dispensers with pancake syrup. Adult version is to take a bottle of hand sanitizer. Clean it out. Fill with KY jelly. Leave in a public location. I farted under the covers, then pointed at the ceiling above my GF and shouted spider. So she'd throw the blankets over her head. Later when she told her parents. That turned out to be the thing that earned her dad's respect for me. Made him laugh so hard he needed an inhaler. Left a message for an investigator that I worked with to call Elefant about a crucial piece of evidence for one of his tough cases. The number I left was for the Toledo Zoo administration offices. The receptionist played along for a few minutes and then let him down easy. The best part is he called on speakerphone from the chief's office. I used to help my mom, a teacher, make quizzes tests for her history classes. I once made a 30-question true or false test have all false answers. My dad said that he and his mates picked up their very drunk passed out friend with the chair he was on. Put it in the back of a ute, drove him to the middle of nowhere and left him there. Chair and all. The AM supervisor at my office is a short little man who likes to work from a laptop on a rolling adjustable desk. For over a year I gradually raised the height of this desk and watched as he went from sitting on a stool to an adjustable tall task chair to standing. Last week he removed the wheels from the desk to lower the height. He doesn't realize it's adjustable. I got a Harry Potter calligraphy set for my birthday years ago. It had Hogwarts marked paper, envelopes and everything. Semicolon. My brother ate all of my birthday chocolates from an aunt that night, so I plotted my revenge. Next September I copied out Harry's letter word for word in green ink, only changing the name. Semicolon. I let him believe he was going to magic school for 2 whole weeks before I crushed it.